Welcome to Intersectional DEI. We are nobody without everybody. My name is Michelle Ganz, and I am the Director of Archives for the Dominican Sisters of Peace in Columbus, Ohio. The goal here today is to learn how to approach DEI in a way that works for you and your organization. What I want you to keep in mind today is that everyone moves through the world differently and have the fundamental right to move through the world in a way that works for them. Let's start with the land acknowledgement statement for Columbus, Ohio. As Dominican Sisters of Peace, associates, and lay people, we give thanks for the sacred land on which we gather and express our gratitude to the peoples who have cared for this holy ground. We acknowledge that our Columbus Mother House and Conference Center occupy the ancestral and contemporary territory of the Shawnee, Potawatomi, Delaware, Miami, Peoria, Seneca, Wyandot, Ojibwe, and Cherokee peoples. We lament the forced removal of these tribes through the Indian Removal Act of 1830. We honor the resiliency of tribal nations and recognize the historical context that continue to affect the indigenous peoples of this land. So, what is a land acknowledgement statement? This is a statement that we've been seeing given at conferences for the last few years. It's an act that is performative in the sense that it is one that is all about optics without any deliverables or substance, kind of like virtue signaling. But I've talked to Indigenous people, and they tell me that while it is a performative act, they appreciate that people are still doing them because it helps normalize the recognition of Indigenous peoples and helps recognize that Indigenous peoples still exist. The goal of DEI is justice, and the roadmap starts with ensuring that justice is applied across the board. So, what do we mean when we talk about DEI? Diversity. Socially, it refers to the wide range of identities. It broadly includes race, ethnicity, gender, age, national origin, religion, disability, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, education, marital status, language, veteran status, physical appearance, etc. Equity is fair treatment, access, opportunity, and advancement for all people, while at the same time striving to identify and eliminate barriers that prevent the full participation of some groups. Inclusion is the act of ensuring that everyone, regardless of identity, belongs, are seen, are valued, and are empowered to thrive. I'd like to add a second I to this acronym, which is intersectionality, which is a social contract that recognizes the fluid diversity of identities that a person can hold. So, how do we make our repositories diverse, inclusive, and equitable? We need to acknowledge mistakes of the past, take active steps to make DEI a natural component of archival work, and doing the work to reach communities of missing voices in the archives. We need to remember that archives are traditionally created from the cis white male perspective. Expanding perspectives makes for a more complete collection. Inclusive environments foster collaboration, and equity gives everyone a chance to fully contribute. So, how do we disrupt the patterns that we are seeing? We want to do things like model the behavior that we want to see, holding dysfunctional systems accountable, engage and empower to collectively find solutions, normalize prioritizing work life balance, addressing issues as they come up in the moment, rather than letting them fester, and giving people the agency to make suggestions without fear of reprisal. If you're a manager, you need to learn the communication preferences of your staff. How do you check in without being intimidating or micromanaging? And how do you provide feedback without seeming like you're attacking? Let's pause here to talk about some subtle acts of exclusion, which cause many of these barriers to occur. I would invite everyone, to take a look at this book, Subtle Acts of Exclusion. They really highlight how these microaggressions affect everyday life and how we can better identify and suppress those. Um, Microaggressions are everyday verbal, nonverbal, and environmental slights, snubs, or insults, whether intentional or unintentional, which communicate hostility, derogatory, or negative messages to target persons based solely on their marginalized group membership. This includes things like asking where you're really from, interrupting or speaking over someone, misgendering or dead naming someone, assuming a person of color is the staff or service worker, and assuming that the male in the room is the leader. These are just some examples of microaggressions that really affect everyday interactions. So, how can we hold systems accountable? Archivists in leadership or managerial roles can hold up past policies to light, can recommend changes to those policies, avoiding pitfalls before they become problems by addressing issues as they come up, and pushing administration to update or change outdated policies, procedures, and style guides. For archivists in the trenches, you can identify issues as they happen in real time, support changes from above, and model behavior that you want to see. You may want to create a script for yourself to help make sure that the message you are trying to convey to management or leadership is clear. So let's talk about small solutions for complex problems on the personal level, the managerial level, the institutional level, and the professional level. Support people at every level. Person-to-person interactions are key to coming up with small solutions to complex problems. As a manager, you need to set the tone for how your staff work together and the tone for how the department lives DEI. As an administrator, you can start bringing DEI issues to the forefront of strategic planning. As a professional, you can support DEI by providing on-the-job training and mentoring to incoming or new professionals. So what can you really do about DEI? And I'm going to start here by saying what you don't need to do. You are not required to do anything that makes you uncomfortable. You don't need to be a vocal advocate or driving force behind every DEI initiative. It is really enough just to be kind to your coworkers, be understanding of differences, and try to be inclusive. And this can be something as simple as inviting people to lunch that you don't normally eat with, engaging with people on a social level. For example, asking them what they did over the weekend. Representation matters. This quote from Whoopi Goldberg has stuck with me my whole life. And what she says is, when I was 9 years old, Star Trek came on. I looked at it and went screaming through the house. Come here, Mom. Everybody, come quick, come quick. There's a black lady on television and she ain't no maid. I knew right then and there that I could be anything I wanted to be. And this is a really important statement. Because what she is saying here is that by seeing Nichelle Nichols on television performing in a role in leadership, it showed her that the possibilities were endless. And we need to make sure that that representation happens for everyone. The easiest way to do this is by modeling behaviors that you want to see. Be like Mr. Rogers. In this image here, we have Mr. Rogers sitting with Mr. Clemens, who is the police officer for Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. At the time that this photo was taken, it was the height of the civil rights movement when Black people were being attacked in swimming pools for swimming in segregated pools. By showing Mr. Clemens in the pool with him, Mr. Rogers has invited him to join him. They cool their feet together in the pool while talking about events, and then Mr. Rogers helps dry his feet. This shows that Mr. Rogers loves and accepts Mr. Clemens regardless of what he looks like. Interestingly enough, Mr. Clemens is actually also gay, and this is something that they wanted to bring up in the show, but were unable to do so because of the climate of the time. I want you to remember that it's okay to make mistakes. Mistakes are proof that you're trying. Mistakes mean that you're not giving carte blanche to yourself to continue doing things like misgendering someone or saying never mind when a hard of hearing person asks you to repeat something multiple times. Here's an example. My best friend of nearly 30 years came out as non-binary last year. I am still misgendering them on occasion, but I just correct myself and move on. The key point is that I continue to try. Just remember, everybody moves through the world differently. Everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle. Be kind. I'll leave you with this quote from Doctor Who. Never be cruel, never be cowardly. Hate is always foolish, love is always wise. Always try to be nice, but never fail to be kind. Please email me anytime if you have any questions. Michelle.gans42@gmail.com. Thank you.